might be wondering, what is this strange looking vegetable? Maybe it's a turnip? Not sure. This vegetable is actually a kohlrabi. It starts with the letter K, if you're kind of curious about that. And it's not related to the turnip at all, but it's actually more related, and it's a cousin of the cabbage. And today we're going to be making some sauteed kohlrabi. So yes, you can actually eat this, and you might be wondering how you can eat it. You can saute it as we're going to do today. Or if you look at MU Extension's Seasonal and Simple Cookbook, a collection of 116 seasonal-based recipes featuring fruits and vegetables that are commonly found in Missouri farmers markets or gardens, you can find out not only how to eat kohlrabi, but several other fruits and vegetables, such as cherries, or maybe you're interested in learning how to eat scallions or green onions in a slightly different way. But today we're going to feature kohlrabi. It's in season right now, and as I said, we're going to do a sauteed kohlrabi dish. So very, very simple dish. We're going to start by preparing our kohlrabi. So when you buy kohlrabi in the store, you're going to find bunches usually put together, maybe a bunch of 2 or 3. It's going to look like this with some leaves on top of it. And what we're going to do today to start our prep for our kohlrabi is just cut off of our leaves and remove some of those fronds on top. And then we're going to cut off, this is actually the stem end of the kohlrabi. Again, kohlrabi does look like a root vegetable, but we're not eating the root of the kohlrabi at all. We're just eating, I guess what I would say maybe part of this stem, or I guess the actual fruit of the kohlrabi. So what we're going to do is now that we've got our kohlrabi kind of prepared, we're going to peel it just with a standard vegetable peeler. If you didn't have a very sharp peeler, you could also use a kitchen knife. You just need to have good knife skills if you're going to do that. But you can just use a standard vegetable peeler and just peel the skin off. Just like this. And of course, I have pre-washed the kohlrabi. You want to do that with any fruit and vegetable to get rid of any bacteria that might be present on the fruit or vegetable, or any extra pesticides that might be grown if you buy it conventionally raised. So we've got the kohlrabi peeled, and if you're at home, you'd go ahead and finish that process. The next step to preparing our kohlrabi, and what I've got here in our colander, is grated kohlrabi. So for this recipe, we've grated 4 kohlrabi. You can use your standard home grater. Takes a little arm strength, so it can be a good workout. But if you're looking for a quicker process, I would also encourage you to use a food processor with a grater attachment on top. So what I've done to the kohlrabi here, and why it's actually sitting in a colander, is we've salted it with 1 teaspoon of just regular table salt. You could also use kosher salt or even a sea salt, but any kind of salt would be is good. And the reason why we salted it is we want to draw out the moisture that's in the kohlrabi. Remember, we're making sauteed kohlrabi, so in order for the kohlrabi to saute, we need to get some of that extra moisture out of it. Otherwise, when we add it to our skillet for cooking, it would steam, it wouldn't get brown or take on a crisper texture. So this is an important step. So following the recipe, we've salted the kohlrabi, and we're going to let it kind of sit here for just another couple of minutes. It needs to stand with the salt on it for about 20 to 30 minutes. The other thing that we've started to prepare is an onion. So I've got 1 medium onion, and this was a relatively large onion, so I just took half of it. I've sliced it thinly, and I've got it cooking in 1 tablespoon of butter here. And you can see that our onions have been browned nicely and caramelized. And how we did that is we just let the butter melt, come up to temperature, added our onions, and then over medium heat have cooked it slowly until it began to brown. Once your onions are browned at this stage, you can essentially go ahead and add your kohlrabi. So we've let our kohlrabi sit for 20 to 30 minutes. I've had it kind of sitting here on the table with the salt on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to simply take a kitchen towel, or you can use paper towels as well. And we're going to just place it in our kitchen towel. Fold up the edges. And then over the colander, we're going to squeeze out that water. So once you've got, you think, a fair amount of the water out, just gonna open this up. You're just gonna bring it over to your skillet here. You're just gonna basically carefully, try not to make a mess, add it to your dish. You can see I made a little bit of a mess, but I guess that's what cooking's all about too, is making some messes. So at this point, we're gonna actually turn our heat down to low. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna let that kohlrabi and onion mixture cook. And the recipe directs us to actually cook it covered. We're gonna use our improvise with a little bit of aluminum foil here. And let it cook for about 10 minutes. Or until that kohlrabi starts to get a little bit brown and you get a little bit of brown or fond to develop on the bottom of your pan. So we're gonna let that cook just a little while longer, and while we do that, I wanna talk just a little bit more about kohlrabi and actually how you can kind of purchase it and how you wanna store it at home. So when you purchase kohlrabi at the store, notice these are the leaves that we cut off from our kohlrabi. But what you want to look for are leaves that are generally green in color. You don't want to see any wilting in the leaves or any of that yellow kind of turning of the leaves. And you also want to look for produce that's firm, so no mushy spots or anything like that. When you get home and you want to put it in your refrigerator to store it, simply cut off the leaves so that these don't get all wilted and kind of, well, for lack of a better word, spoiled. And then store it in your refrigerator in a plastic bag for up to a week. Kohlrabi, as I was saying, can be prepared in several different ways, but one of my favorite preparation styles is actually just to eat it raw and to put it out on a vegetable tray and serve it with a little bit of veggie dip. It's great raw with carrots, celery, and other vegetables that commonly found on a vegetable dip. So, our kohlrabi has now magically cooked for 10 minutes, and it looks something like this at the completion of that 10 minutes. So you can see that we've got a nice browning of color here, and the dish kind of takes on one similar color. That's kind of what we're going for. We want a little bit of browning on the kohlrabi. It takes on the color of the onions, essentially. And what we're going to do to finish our sauté kohlrabi dish is actually add some additional seasoning in the form of basil. And if you wanted to use fresh basil, you certainly can use fresh basil and would be encouraged during the summer when basil is in season. If you're going to use fresh basil, you'll want to make a note to be sure to use 1 tablespoon of fresh basil instead of 1 teaspoon of dried basil. Dried herbs have a more concentrated flavor, so you need less of them. Fresh herbs, you need more of them because their flavor isn't as concentrated. So we're gonna let the basil just kind of cook with the kohlrabi to take on, impart its flavor there for just about 30 seconds or to a minute. And then at the completion of that, this dish is ready to be served. So very, very simple. The longest part is probably grating the kohlrabi, to be honest, for this recipe. But the actual cooking part of this recipe is done and ready in less than 15 minutes. Thank you guys, and we hope you enjoyed this demonstration for sauté kohlrabi. Don't forget about the Seasonal and Simple resource. Again, that website is seasonalandsimple.info, and also search for it on your Apple and Android device for the app.
Gonna wave bye or something?
Oh, what? Oh, bye.